Former First Lady Melania Trump has a memoir coming out this fall. Melania, billed by her office as a powerful and inspiring story of a woman who has carved her own path, overcome adversity, and defined personal excellence. It's the first memoir by Trump, who has been mostly absent as her husband, former President Donald Trump, seeks to return to the White House. Melania will be released by Skyhorse Publishing, which has published such Donald Trump supporters as former New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani and attorney Alan Dershowitz. Skyhorse also has worked with third party candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and former Trump insider Michael Cohen, who later became one of his harshest critics. Some Skyhorse books include forewords by Trump ally Steve Bannon. Melania Trump's memoir was announced Thursday by her office, which neither provided a specific release date nor mentioned whether it would come out before Election Day in November. Trump has been the subject of other books, including one by former advisor Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, but she has never told her own story at length before. The former First Lady invites readers into her world, offering an intimate portrait of a woman who has lived an extraordinary life. The announcement reads in part Melania includes personal stories and family photos she has never before shared with the public. This is interesting for a few reasons. One, I had a feeling that at some point she would write a memoir. Every American First Lady since Lady Bird Johnson, with the exception of Pat Nixon, has written one. And it's kind of just par for the course where you live in the White House for 4 to 8 years and then you write a book about your experiences there. The one thing I wasn't entirely sure of is whether we would get one this soon, because there's still the possibility that Trump might win the election in November. And if that happens, and if Melania is truly convinced that will happen, I figured that she would try to hold out on putting out a memoir until after, serving a possible second stint in the White House, and then being able to add that to whatever she already has compiled. Now, the other book that they mentioned, the one by her former aide, Woke Off. I remember when those recordings came out that Wolkoff took of her and was like, oh, she betrayed her and whatnot. But I'm always a fan of public figures being able to tell their own side of the story. I mean, Melania's White House saga, even though I didn't really talk about it much when we were, living through the 4 years of Trump's tenure, was interesting, right? You have this first lady who is only barely married to her husband for a little bit over 10 years before he runs for president. And when that happens, she's not really that involved. She appears with him during some of these victories and some of the, battleground states or early primary states. But besides that, really stays off the campaign trail. And when she becomes the first lady, she takes on this anti-bullying platform, which is criticized because Trump's tweets are considered to be, one of the most notable versions of cyberbullying anybody's ever seen. But she takes on this position, right? This is her issue that she chooses to identify with. And throughout the entire 4 years that she's in the White House, she is criticized for everything. She's criticized for not moving into the White House until after Trump's been president for, I believe it was half a year, right? It was like June that she finally moved in because she wanted her son to finish the school year in New York, and then they would move over to Washington to be with the president. And you had critiques of the outfits that she wore. She had this jacket that said some of the effect of "I don't care, do you?" or whatever, and that was criticized. She was criticized for wearing pumps during, I think it was one of the hurricane visits that her and Trump participated in. Just roundly attacked. And I've said before, I am no Trump fan, but I have always had some soft spot for Melania because all of this was kind of just thrust upon her by virtue of being married to a successful presidential candidate, at least in 2016 anyway. And most of the critiques of her are just extensions of things relating to Trump. I would actually say that the only two things she could be criticized properly over throughout her entire tenure as First Lady was probably just maybe going along with Trump's assertion that the 2020 election was stolen and you're refusing to meet with Joe Biden right ahead of the transition. That's pretty much it. She really was just like the person that got besmirched for who she was married to. But going back to the memoir itself, from what I've seen, so this article didn't mention, but it's being alleged it's going to come out in September before the election, which I do think is appropriate because if you're trying to convince people to like be nostalgic for the Trump era, then what better way than to get the biggest in-depth reveal of his spouse's feelings about this time, right? I mean, I'm confident that we probably will get a Trump memoir about his White House years, um, but it's not going to be for a while. Like if he whether he wins or loses, it's still going to take several years, and if he wins, it's going to take probably 5 years. But just to kind of go over some of this stuff, it's interesting to see kind of what her reactions and way of referring to a lot of the stuff is, and I really hope that she actually addresses some of these kind of goofy controversies. And I would absolutely be over the moon if she goes over the horrible treatment that they gave her son. I mean, I remember you had some comedian that was talking about Barron being a future school shooter, just disgusting stuff. And I again, even as someone who's not a fan of these people, I can be sympathetic because it's literally just I don't like your dad, so you are going to be this thing that is colloquially awful. Um, but if she does the book, hopefully she addresses that. It's really a big mystery. They're talking about never before seen photos. I know in a lot of these books they have like a section, like a slab of pages, just a bunch of pictures. Um, but yeah, it looks like this will be the last book I buy this year, especially with the little crappy economic whirlwind I've been in. Um, but such an odd choice, right? To just have her, and this is something else I want to mention. Trump's books have been coming out through Winning Team Publishing, uh, probably the goofiest name I've ever seen for any publishing company. And they've had, he's written the book for them, or I guess had multiple books come through them with his name on it, like Letters to Trump. Carrie Lake, Marjorie Taylor Greene, some of his other supporters have put books out through there. And when I saw that Melania was writing a book, I thought, oh, she's going to go with the same publishing company as her husband, right? Because you want to promote, beyond brand or whatever. But it looks like that won't be the case, which is interesting because you would think if they're all trying to do like the united front of you can't trust these other publishers, and when we do our own stuff we can we're the winning team. But I guess that's just something for him and his sidekicks. So this will be an interesting book, and hopefully people will read it. They'll give her story a chance. I'm always for any public figure putting out a memoir. Britney Spears put one out, I believe it was last year, during that conservation insanity with her family. Um, and like I said, I support people being able to give their own side of the story. That's all I would like to see given. In terms of just so many times you hear something from some back channel. Oh, there's a rumor that this person doesn't like that person, and it was alleged that this. No, I want the full story straight from the individual themselves, and then we can judge accordingly. And that's all you can ask. Just go approach things with an open mind.